Help me, help the DNA through me. Help me, help the DNA through me. Ooh. Wholeness and balance vibrations, family. Whew. We here. This one's titled The Great Morpheus, God of Dreams. Dream within a dream. Well, let's just breathe for a moment. Looking for that notification in the chat that this thing is live. About to bring this online. Let me drink some of this hydrogen fuel. Once again, if you can hear me and you hear me clear, let me know in the chat. And we'll unleash the Kraken on this whole thing. Unleash the Kraken on YouTube. Get it crack-a-lackin'. Okay, yeah, everybody says we cleared in, so let's go, let's go, let's go. So Flat Earth, how is that psyop working out for you? Just meaning, hey, man, know when you're getting played. So I'm going to actually play this back one more again for the massive disclosure of exactly where we're at and what's going on. I know folks have been saying, yo, where you been at? And you know where I've been at. I've been building a solution because I'm not one of those guys that's just going to sit here all day and keep making up more fear porn for you and telling you everything about what's going on, but giving you no real solution about what to do about this, especially if you got family, you got kids, you got to go to this crazy job, you know, all that's happening. You need to make money. You know, you're trying to figure out your diet, how to afford your diet. They're asking you for more shit. Meaning they're asking you to do so many things and you just have, you know, all this giving going on most of the time. And then all of a sudden you run out and then they're demanding more from you as if there's no one that wants to balance out. So we're going to give some today since there's a lot of people who are ready to receive, but we're going to give some potency that can be spread to everyone. Okay. So one more again, let me just clarify for you. What happens here is if everybody believes in something, or a large group of us start to believe in something, that kind of makes it exist. So it kind of rules out, you know, if you believe in the law of, what do they call it, the law of attraction and all this kind of stuff, you also have to subscribe to this one, that if we all start imagining things look a certain way, then that's how it would look. So that's the first arrow about what exactly it looks like of what we're in. Not to mention that what would that even matter if you don't even have something to fly up out of this thing? You can't fly up there and look at it because you're broke. You know, broken literally meaning that just something's not connecting. You got too much division going on, so it's not clicking for you. So your energy centers haven't boosted up and to turn you into a galactic billion, trillion, zillionaire, a Googleplex or whatever with your energy. But meanwhile, you got folks running around who you complain about that don't seem to be conscious, that are running the world in this in this state of consciousness, meaning we think that these big corporations and things are now running the world and they got all the money. They put us onto the money system. And now, you know, people are like, what do we do? So I'm going to show you exactly what we do, why we're going to do it. And just know, though, it's going to be unapologetically. OK, today, all gloves are off. I'm not working with neophytes. Let me turn off my notification centers. We're not working with neophytes. And they're needing for the gloves to be on to explain to them very calmly what's happening. Today is about the Hail Mary, meaning that this is the long bomber. This is where, yeah, you know, we still are kind of screwing it up in relation to actually coming together. And so the less time we have to pull this off, we're going to need to bring in a quantum solution. So this quantum solution is actually about to roll through. See, because this is a cosmic calendar, and this is what I've been putting everybody on to, You can actually get this on Android or Apple. And again, this is just a dream world, by the way. So those who won't take too much offense about what I'm saying about time and space and how things look and how they appear. But I'm saying real time that Mercury, or this chakra that's in the sky and in the ocean, is about to drive over this spot. And as it's about to drive over this spot, coming through with the sun and everybody else, because it's almost 12 o'clock noon here for me, I'm going to bring it with the power of the cosmos, because that's what you can do. This is, something you would use if you were on a boat. If you were a navigator, you could navigate things based on this right here, what you're looking at. So that's why I say flat Earth is a psyop, because it takes all this away from you. And it basically says, oh, this is fake. There's all satellites. Whatever it is and whatever kind of technology is out there and being used, it's affecting you. Just like as sure as that full moon comes in and you start feeling like, oh man, where's she at? And as that sun starts coming in for males in the morning, just as all of that energy is very real, these bodies are very real. And it's important for us to understand what's up with these bodies and how are things affecting us, what's going to happen in the future and what's happening right now, because that's what you would be able to tell with this. So, but first, I need to take you just to a simple level of awareness. And give me a second here. That's the wrong one, but wholeness. Yeah, it is I, and not a recording, not an Android. Sevan Bomar here doing it. So let me just go to the screen. Let me flip my my screen share thing. Just give me one quick second. Flip this over here. Let me see, where's that setting at? Bam, bam. Screen share from reset position. Yeah, this thing it set itself up on a different monitor. Here we go. There's the monitor, screen capture, configure, roboto, all the things with this computer. All right. So just give me a minute. I'm gonna have to delete this and put it back in. I got a little welcome sign for everybody. There you go. Let me just move this. I just want you to see something. There's gonna be a lot of screen shares today. I got the iPad here too. Just give me a minute to work with this thing. I gotta delete. Boop. And I got an add. Another screen capture. This was set up before I started, by the way. Screen capture from this new screen. And I need the one. This one. Okay. All right. 101. So if somebody asks me, Sevan, so what do you think is going on? Based on everything that you've learned now and what you know now, now I'm a father too, so I got a lot of maturity, because it takes a lot of maturity to, to be a father and to take care of a child here in this plane and to take those responsibilities on. And then to have also so many neophytes coming through, meaning those that are just starting with the consciousness and are very immature. And then they're emailing you, acting all crazy. So there's a lot. And also anyone, if it starts breaking up or doing anything weird, just send it in the chat, because I am looking at the chat. And I will monitor it. And just because I heard, this thing cuts off sometimes. But I just want you to, I took this morning. I took this right outside of the shower because I'm in the jungle. And so this is my own photography. I won't break copyright laws with this. And this is just explaining this phenomena of what I believe, if somebody asks me, is the truth here. And the truth here is that we never left our mother's house. We never left our mother's house. Okay? And what I mean by that is that notice how it's a simple play. You're inside the womb. You're all curled up, snuggled up in there. It's warm, jacuzzi. And you got a tube coming in of food already broken down for you. I mean, is this... Is that lux? That's real luxury right there. You getting it like that? So you start off there, right? And then there's this process where you hit this 9-month phase, like an incubation. And then at a certain point, you're ready to leave the house. It's like, okay, I'm too big for this. I'm ready. Hello, anyone out there? Aliens, anybody out there? I keep seeing some black move through every now and then. Something's happening out there. I hear noise. I'm ready to leave. Blow this up a little bit more and get it all centered up nice. Ready to leave. And then so rebelliousness starts. This is rebelliousness with it's like the shaking. It's like the agitation that ultimately makes you get kicked out. He's got to go. He's ready to leave anyway. She's ready to leave. Get her out the house. Okay? So then what happens, though, is it's funny because now let me show you how this is a simple place. So then what happens next is you decide or you think that you leave. I'm out. I got my own job now. I'm leaving. Bye, Mom. But the funny part is, I even went a step ahead. When you leave the womb with that idea, 9 months, I'm ready to leave. You come out and now you're in the world. But guess who's right there when as soon as you get out of the door, who's there? Mom. Wait a minute. How does this work? I was inside of Mom. Now I'm outside of Mom. Okay, I'll go with it. So now I'm introduced to Mom again. Mom's like, hey, this is my baby. I've been waiting on my baby to come. Oh my goodness. And this is like, okay, so now I'm introduced to now another mother, even though I thought I kind of had the whole mother thing and I was leaving Mom. So now this goes on. Now you're growing up, right? 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. Finally, you hit that. Nowadays it's like 13, but let's say you hit that 17 and you're just like too fast. You got that job at McDonald's or whatever, that $253 a month. And now you didn't group that with about 5 of your friends and it's time to get out. You're going to have your own place and now you're out again. But you missed that. The moment you step out into the world and you're out of your house, you're still in your house. You're still in the house. And us metaphysically, we know that because the whole world is our mother. So you're still even in your mother's house. So how do you think for one moment that would ever end? And this is what I got to start this with today is like, how do you think this whole fake out, I'm at my mom's house, and then realizing after a while when you get wise again that, oh, wow, we're still in our mother's house. We're still in nature. We're still in the womb. And then that wouldn't keep happening. Okay, so that's one thing I'm only naming. And when you start building up some of these maxims, because I can talk to you about this kind of stuff all day, that you can prove through fact is actually happening and that people's minds are actually wired to think edgewise. And they're acting out. They're acting out as if this distorted knowledge that they believe in of this not being the case. And they start making decisions and they start making rules and they start making religions and they start making every single thing with these misconceptions. This is the new generation, okay? Versus when the ancient laws it was entrenched around us. It was us. It was our parents. It was everything that we knew. When that was happening, there was an entirely different awareness that we had about what to do. So now we're going to go in that space again today because I have to live in that space. I can't live in an Android world. I can't live in a world of codes. And I'll break that down for just a quick second. In just a quick second. And it's because once we accept the codes, well, that's the first problem right there. And I'm just going to show you really briefly just a code that was run on everybody. Everybody has a version of this. There's been enough of the knowledge coming out about the straw man and all that, even though they kind of miss some things. Also, culture seemed to miss some things when they're in their own quarrel. But I just want to point it out very briefly that pretty much everyone is functioning on some type of code or treaty, especially in which, by the way, they refer to themselves. And the example I'm using here is the black codes, because the 13th Amendment states that even though we're all equal and that everyone now will be free, etc., it has a little clause in it and it says, unless you are a criminal. And it turns out, well, I'm not going to go and elaborate too deep for you, that because these edicts come from draconians by way of Orion, meaning that the draconian system here, or the law-based system, which is Saturnalian, that has the instruction to rule here in this segment of the galaxy, has variations of codes. And this is why the Saturnalian tradition, as I was explaining to everyone, that is all about law. It's all about bar. And it's constantly being corrupted because we have all the society has been infiltrated. But before that corruption, this is, let's say, the judicial arm, okay? The judicial arm of the cosmos. Who's responsible for enforcing the justice? And this is why when you remove that judicial component, which has been removed, and I'll explain that in just a minute, it has been supplanted, then you get this corruption. You get where your actual legal figures, which are actually supposed to be the elves, they're supposed to be upright, right? So they're supposed to be the ones that are giving you the moral bearing and the rules of how to measure yourself. That system has been corrupted, and now you have actually, it's like a shape-shifting invader sitting right behind the same council, sitting right behind the same control center of Bar, which is Saturn, and the legalities that are basically the edging and nudging of us doing the proper thing in our growth. Not anything to do with this system that has been developed, which only benefits the people who have taken over it. But I just want to be very clear here that in these laws and in these rules and edicts that actually come from the draconian councils and empires, there's an awareness that once a human being, if you may, or a being of the cosmos, let's just call it a being aware of self, not acting, but being, okay? Once a being slips into acting, slips into getting in debt, slips into the lower vibratory field, if you may, like that their field is no longer harmonic. What happens next is they become a color because they actually divide at that stage. Okay, so they become a color. And when you start to rectify when that color or that debt is balanced out, that would be when the person actually becomes free again. So what I'm explaining to you is that if you are labeled as a color, which also can be a name, these Indians, these Africans, and then the reference or the name that you're using is not from the mother tongue, is not the mother lodge, if you may, meaning that this is not the place that you were born. If you're referring to yourself as being born from another mother that is actually more of a corporation and a dead entity and not actually a real being. I'm from the United States, right? Now, actually, you would then become a color because even the name United States is just a color. And I'll just explain this very cleanly here. It's just the awareness that when you say that you're a color, you get put under a code. And this is just the black code. And this actually affects, as we know, that quote unquote African American or the Kemetan. However, what I'm here to tell you today is that all of these people that are inside of the Uniteds, whether it's United Arab Emirates, United States, the United Socialist Republics, the unions of Soviet unions, European unions, any of those unions and Uniteds, which is all a deception, you're under actually codes. And at least for us, as far as, let's say, the Kemetans, they have our codes published. Like most of these codes are actually hidden, meaning just the act. It's just the act. You just being aware that just the act of them putting a clause in and say, but yeah, if you're a criminal, then you're not free. You're not a citizen. You don't have any rights. You're not able to keep your family. We can work you for nothing. We can do all these different things to you just because now you're classified as a code or a number. Okay, and I just wanted to make everyone aware of this really briefly before we dive into this, because you're going to have to see where things went sometimes before you can even see how we got there. And so I just want to say in the end, somebody is now using codes that actually are tied into debt and criminal acts. And they're placing these codes onto other people. And then those people are saying, yeah, I am in that code. I am from this place, or I am this color. And then through that action by law, which is draconian law, passed down from Orion. So it has already a bull behind it, meaning it literally will work. If you can fool the people into doing this, it puts you in debt. And this debt equals, for the most part, your wisdom, like how high you can get in the spirit, how clear you can be when we start talking about that you have your own power. Okay, because I notice this is very fuzzy for people these days about the difference between their power versus some external force that they keep calling on externally and not realizing that all this exists inside. And the sheer action of you making the decision to think you're talking to something outside is redirecting your energy. And this is why I haven't seen too many, if any person that is into worship, calling beings and all that kind of stuff, doing all the prayers, I haven't seen these beings really master the matrix, but yet and still, meaning master their lives. But yet and still, I see boatloads of what I would say is distorted, very dark forces, just practicing only really a few principles of the truth. And then the rest they're fudging on, still getting farther than those people. Why? Because those people have turned themselves over and opened themselves up to something they just don't understand. And this is why on the door of the temple, it says, know yourself. Because you cannot know all of these things, these powerful forces and principalities and all this kind of stuff, if you don't know yourself. Because what lens would you be looking through? Somebody else's lens? An external lens? So let's talk about how this all was put together and why you're so powerful. Okay? So just remember, though, in all of this, we're still in the womb. We're still in an aspect of the dream within itself. So when I almost said, don't take it too serious, but this actually has everything to do with serious. It has actually everything to do with semantics, words, how to move words around, how to gradually change the meanings of words, and how to actually evoke an entirely different reality for all those within it, because we all use these words. Words are sacred to us. And also, right now, write in your notes, numbers were never used for counting. Numbers were never used for counting. That was the final, most basic, debased use of what you're calling numbers, which is a code in itself. Numbers are a code. They're archetypes. But they were never used for counting like money and stuff like that. That was not what they were about. A number could tell you the entire configuration of the magical crafts that you can create to do a variety of things. They weren't used to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because once you start doing that, you evoke the metaphysical aspect of how you can turn human beings, as we want to call them that, human beings into just numbers. Oh, now they're no longer important. So if we don't treat the numbers as what they really are, the archetypes of the archetypical natures of what they truly represent, which is the planets, and we just debase them and like, oh yeah, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The more numbers I have, the better off I'll be. And you don't learn about these numbers and you become numb, if you may, right? Then the person actually will never unlock not only the truth, they will also, for others that follow that same path, they will become confused. And that's how a tower falls. That's how something that we're all building on, we have like a master copy. The master copy is the numbers. The languages is everything that derives from the numbers or the archetypes. But if right off we start using the numbers themselves, which are symbols, look at them as symbols, but we start using them to count, we become it's just so easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we actually don't really realize that we're saying certain planets. When we say 1, we're saying the sun. We're saying 2, we're saying the moon. We're saying 3, we're saying Jupiter. When we're saying 4, right? So when we start pushing off those numbers, those are actually powers and planets and energies. And that's a high level of magic. But we've learned how to just buy gym shoes with that. Okay, so let me show you. So what happens here is that now, first off, I also wanted this to be fun. Okay, so let me take a moment because I already got crunk up. I wanted this to be fun. Let me look at the chat here, make sure everything's broadcasting cool. Okay. I wanted this to be fun because the only way you can stomach this and to start, really getting into this to where you'll actually be useful. A lot of people just balled up in their mind and just, oh, what's going on? Or I'm so, and I'm not like, and none of those aspects of things, if you sat down and you were sober, is going to make it happen here for our DNA. And that's the other thing. You need to have a reason why you're doing this. Many of you are headless at this point, meaning you need to have an actual purpose or else it just becomes like an elephant gun. So the purpose here, which makes it very clear, is sovereignty. Get yourself sovereign, get that into your DNA, and then start upholding the DNA. Because when you say the DNA, it doesn't limit it to your race or color. It doesn't limit it to your family. It doesn't limit it to just your child or whatever. You say overall, the DNA, the codes that we're sharing, let's trust that we're going to keep defragging and cleaning up these codes to make truth. for our children and for those that will be coming after us, because there will be some that are coming after us, and we'll be very mindful about this action of understanding how important it is to not just preserve, but to evolutionize, if you may, the aspect of what we're going through in this experience. But make no mistake, though, it's already big up there. It's already anything you can think. Any balance you could think of ever to be achieved, any aspect of worlds that you can think minus certain things, plus certain things, it's all going on because you have the ability to do that. That's why you can dream. You were given that gift. And I will actually tell you the secret to death. The secret to death is some people say, oh man, I remember being here before. I remember being here before. No. You haven't been here before. Your grandmother may have been here before. Your great grandmother may have been here before. And what you're perceiving is the DNA that was actually passed on to you and their experiences through that DNA. But as of you have not been here before. What's really happening is that you just came off another kind of life, not necessarily as an animal, but even how you learn to dream. You came off of another life that was all more important, i.e. the spiritual world, nothing physical. And when you came into this world, you still have all of that. If you start trying to use any of that, which doesn't take thought, it will activate and turn right on because it's there. So too, when you leave here, all this that you had gained in this experience, everything you learned, the letters, the numbers, the people, the attitudes, the matrix, the GMO, all that will go with you and be added all to that. Because that's what we're doing. We're constantly adding this experiences onto us. And this is just known as the human experience. And the human experience is often daunting because each of these experiences always come as the greater level, the apex. I'm leaving home. I'm going into the greater. But always end up summarizing themselves in the end like there's got to be something bigger than this. And that's called the rise and the fall. That's like a movie that's playing out inside of ourselves. So the reality is if you realize all this is going on and even how to control it, you become the director. So it goes back to the stage of you designing ultimate luxury by putting yourself and placing yourself into a womb where the food can even be fed to you in a broken down way to where you can ingest it, comprehend it, and not even have to be fully activated, fully into this whole being everything. You can actually be this minuscule, let's say low powered, in efficiency type being going through the experience. You see what I mean? Because if this thing is at 50,000 volts, what kind of experience is that? Is that the experience you want? No. So there's an optimal, just like there's a pH balance. There's an optimal experience that we're looking for. And that's what all this is about, is you finding the optimal experience. But I think there's some things that you're going to need to know. Now, first off, realize that the droids and the clones and drones are upon us. There is so much fake going on. It's hard to even tell what's real. News is fake. Religion's fake. The booties are fake. I mean, what's happening here? We need to slow down for one moment and just remember, if you're still alive in there, I'm talking to you. I'm not from a world where everybody was fake. I had real friends, people that really looked out for you, people who didn't write you off on the next whim, weren't so weak in their own minds about what was really going to happen, ride or die. That's where I'm from. And I'm noticing, a trend of that disappearing. So it's important to know where that is coming from, where that programming of the strong, tight bonds, because that's our DNA. If we start to actually separate as a people, as a family, if the separation begins, this means that the DNA is actually becoming unraveled. Forget your little problem that you're having over there with your neighbor, your next door neighbor. I'm talking about the metaphysical side and aspect of that. I'm here for the metaphysical side and aspect of what I'm actually talking about today. So I can take it super low, which I will go as low as possible. I want to start labeling my YouTube. This is possibly my last YouTube video because I'm going to be removed from this platform before I leave, meaning that I will ride this thing to the ground. And I got another notification to everybody that I got one more week, because I've been in deep building. Like I got programmers, developers, way showers. I got all types of people around me, all collaborating on this big move of mass exodus from social media into real consciousness and sovereignty and physical connections in the process of doing that. However, when you're starting to talk about that kind of stuff, like a lot of people love to talk, I'm like, okay, so I guess it's going to start one character at a time. And for me, one character at a time, one key at a time, one graphic, one pixel, especially since I'm only dealing with this virtual world. So who's going to build it? I'm going to make sure that happens. And the people that are with me have also aligned in resonance. And there's more aligning in resonance. But there's this saying, If you build it, they'll come. Okay. And what that's about is that, yes, the reason why there is no alternatives most of the time for much of what we see going on that we're so disgruntled about is because no one is patient enough, skilled enough, communicative enough to at times pull the entire thing off, like actually really get it done, even if it's by yourself. But we are actually creating more and more beings like that are capable of taking it that long haul. And then also easing it up to where we're all connecting together. And that's allowing us to actually create and build things. But beyond that, remember, that's a choice. That's something that you can get an option to do. But right now, there's things that are happening that whether you want it to or not, just as sure as it's about to be a little bit longer before Mercury passes over with this wave, it's still going to come through. So it's all about, are you going to ride the wave or are you going to get wiped out about it? Okay? Are you going to ride this or is it going to wipe you out? So here's the next thing. So what we talked about in this case, that's why I said is unapologetically, and I'm talking about bailing humanity's ass out the fire. Okay. Unapologetically. This is ridiculous. It's 10 years. I'm still at 100,000 views. I did every single thing that I can. Everything they tell you. I made great videos. Look at Halo's videos. This video's dope. Better than anything in the industry. I even went to pay-per-click. I did all of that. I hooked up the site. I did all the graphics. I brought an amazing message, if I could say so myself. I gave away the book. So damn, I mean, what more? You know, I made everybody the central character in the theme. I backed down the ego. I didn't turn the cameras on unless they needed to be on. I did every single thing you could think of. And this is exactly where it's at with the conscious community as far as recognition of what has been going on, not only at Secret Energy, but what has been going on also with other brothers and sisters I've been seeing that actually are on point, but they're just not able to get that springboard. Now, the great part is that we created the springboard and it's now almost done in its creation. But I will still say there were other springboards out there that I expect to jump off a long time ago, meaning I expect just to take this glorious code to the language and everything it can do to the heights and not have to worry about building and all the other stuff that I may not be that great at. But that's what happened. So I have to bring the question back again to this community, this conscious community, quote unquote, which we can now kind of unearthed exactly what it consists of. But basically just the awareness that now that we know what it consists of, which we'll be talking about a little bit today, we know that we need the Hail Mary. And what I mean by the Hail Mary is the long bomber. As I said earlier, this means that something that you use when you already know, like, yeah, I think we're kind of out of time. It's the last quarter. We need 7 points. So, but we're way far away from the end zone. Who's going to pull this off and throw as many of those Visica pieces, because that's what the football is, as many of those Visica pieces across that field to those running backs and see if they can pull this thing off. That's what this is about right now. So I'm not playing around with anybody. There's not much time left. You see all of the ignorance. Do you know how frustrating it would be for the average American? I'm not going to talk about us per se, because most people know how to process their energy or should know how to process their energy on this phone. And if you're watching this stuff, then, you know, you have to know that anyway. But just how crazy it is to watch everyone with their hands like their hands are behind the back and they can't do anything about this guy. Dump. You see what I mean? Isn't that maddening? It's like this guy, you know, just tweet, hey, you know, the only thing I regret about the China trade deal is that I didn't hike the taxes up more. Boom, the market drops. Boom, then everybody, boom, now, it's all messed up. And then everybody, we can't do anything about him. Just even to see that kind of thing going on lets you know what time it is. It should let you know the gig is up. It's a wrap. They're playing their show. They're playing their game. They turned the presidency into WWF. And when you see that, because you got kids and you got a family, you got a life. If you have any motivation left, any of you that is saying you are a being, you should know, hey, it's time for me to get the move. I need to know what's going on. I need to know how it's going on and when it's going on. It's time to get serious. Gold is up for 6 years at a 6-year high right now. Everybody's throwing all of their money into safe commodities. The market is shaky. Like Most Def said, the devil's on the fault line of a shaky market. You know, it's just like, and he's playing them. You know, I'm figuring out even now, I'm talking to people in Brazil. I'm like, yo, is the fires really that bad? And they're like, the fires kind of come through every year like this, but it ain't 80%. They're talking about it's up at 80% high, right? So the fake news is coming through. And it's like, okay, time out. Time out. What's happening? What's the plan? Now, I already told you I have a plan. I already told you I'm almost done executing that plan. I got one more week of consistency, and I've been working for 3 years on building this new platform and getting it all out. And there's so much. It never arrives on the paper right away. It doesn't like, okay, we're going to turn this into this, and we're going to take this system and incentivize it. No, it never happens like that. But we left a blueprint of exactly how it happens, and that's ambassador training, a blueprint that shows you this is how you put something massive into a quantum manifestation. And this is how you actually carry it on, even if it's only on you. So we did that, and that information is there for you. But I just want to let you know that I'm also calibrated to bring this thing in for a quantum solution. We're not expecting everybody to have gone quantum and to realize exactly what they really are and all that kind of stuff. That's what we want to bring, right? And that's why we have this purpose. So I want to first break down to you the origins of this serpent bloodline thing, because, you know, some people never even like, wow, we're going in another direction. It's like, yeah, it's important that you realize this whole thing with the serpent bloodlines and what is really being said when that's referred to about the dominion and the rulership of this planetary system, especially since you got all these badass kids here that love to fight, love to argue, and love to act immature. And then something's got to constantly keep that in line, just like the rulership. You see, like the ruler, you remember your mom used to whip you with the ruler? That ruler is a straight line. So what is actually that? What does that mean? That's a representation. Okay. So this straight line, this ruler right here, there's a representation of something. Okay. So here's what you need to know. So it's important for you first to know the difference between a czar and a tsar. Okay. Because this cracks the alien code. This cracks the mysteries of everything that you can think of that's otherworldly. This is the otherworldly filtering system, meaning that there will be nothing going on from the extraterrestrial, interterrestrial, any other beings from any dimensions or any of that if it doesn't fly by Sirius first, meaning Sirius, Draconis, and Orion. Okay, these are the police systems, if you may, the polling systems of this particular part of the galaxy. Now, how this was set up is also they're the ones that drop the seed of what we're calling DNA, which is like a seed that starts to unwrap an entire reality. Okay. So I want to bring just light to, and I just drew it out, this symbol particularly here, because you see it everywhere. And it's important that you know that this is a representation of 2 bloodlines. Okay. Or you can just say 2 blood types. Okay. And with these 2 blood types, let me see. And with these 2 blood types, you can create everything from these 2 blood types. Okay. And to manage these 2 blood types is like when you see the Sumerians holding the bag. To manage these 2 blood types is like to be in charge of all of the what can be unpacked from these blood types. It's like, you know, the code. So the same way you are in a body right now and you realize that this is some complex stuff. Imagine that there's beings that already came even before the bodies and actually understood how the bodies were put together and how they're formulated, which is what you're using, right? What you're learning right now. You're calling that metaphysics, but they already know it. And so just at that stage, imagine the responsibility, since you already know that. Now you're also responsible for seeding worlds, for actually seeding the worlds, to set the world up so that it runs and that it ultimately gets to the status of whatever the template is set for. So this particular symbol that I'm showing you right here, this caduceus as it's often called, is also symbolic for that. Now, generally these snakes also, they terminate like this, and there's an egg here. Okay. And this egg is symbolic, again, of the world, the Orpheus. Okay. The dream world. Okay. And this is because in these 2 bloodlines, with them being entwined, which is basically they're in just like the yin and the yang, or the positive and negative. They're in a union. What they produce from that union is the egg. Okay, so it's just like the left brain and the right brain together create the dream. What you're seeing in the dream and how you're even doing the dream, you wouldn't be able to do that if one of the pieces was actually missing. You wouldn't be able to dream. But with the left and the right together, you can create the dream, or you could create the reality. But this reality also rolls out in real life. It actually becomes bloodlines that are actually supposed to hold up the DNA or the lineage. And it's important for me to explain this because, again, a lot of this has been demonized. And now a lot of people are afraid of it. But let me show you something just very briefly. And what this is once again, the realization that you have people that are on the planet that have tapped into some other energies. Now, what you're seeing, this may be extremely pixelated on your side, but what you're seeing is you're seeing someone or a shaman sitting in fire, not being burned or consumed by that fire. Okay? And when you understand what this really is, rather than saying, oh, that's voodoo, you realize that somehow he's tapped into some other being or something about himself or something going on in his lineage that allows him to be able to be impervious to an element of earth. Okay? So this is what is meant by bloodlines. Okay? When we're saying bloodlines, this is what we're talking about. Somehow you've been able to maintain so much of what your original design of being everything was, that other things that normally affect everybody else that bought into this idea that those things have some kind of effect on you don't affect you. And I just want to bring that to the forefront. What can affect one person, another person with a higher level of awareness and higher level of consciousness or connectivity, because that's all it is connectivity and communication. They can be impervious to something that someone else is swearing up and down. Fire burns. Oh, really? Tell him that. Okay, so also this connects because it explains to you a bit about the bloodlines, which is what I'm trying to get everybody to understand during this conversation. Now, I only say try because it's your job, it's your duty, it's your responsibility to determine if this is what is going on, if you're doubting it. And this is why I'm bringing up that in this culture, which is Syrian, okay? These are the real Syrians, not Albert Pike, okay? Or any of these shams that have started up saying that they're from Sirius and that they know about Sirius. You liars. I'm coming for you. What this is about is the original czars, which are in Sudan. These are the Sudanese women. I don't even know how much of Sudan is left. They just that was one of the countries they were coming to take out. And this is because these were the original czars. And the czar cult is deep because it involves, as we talked about before, this act of bringing in entities from other constellations, predominantly Sirius, to actually maintain the bloodline. So this is real information. This book was put together by a lady. She's preppy. She's from Britain. She's not your average New Age cookie who's just going to lie about the next chapter in order to sell a couple books. What she's doing is she's bringing back information to the Queen, and then also to the, it's a name that convent. Also to the convent in which she represents. Because remember, there were a lot of European convents of women that were practicing Wicca. And they sent their own emissaries out into places like Sudan to see what was the status of the spiritual tradition being passed down from those who actually uphold this tradition because it's in their bloodline. Now, they have crescent moons branded on their foreheads, okay? Just to understand, the knowledge is deeper than these watered down Western cultures have been prepared to go in the open. But many of them have been practicing or trying to practice this in the background and have horribly failed. And I'm going to explain to you why. But this first one is that because the czar cult is run by women. because it is about the womb. It is about bringing an entity in, and the entity's got to come through the womb. This is the story of your Virgin Mary. This is the story of Venus, how she's the virgin, she's the princess, and then she's entreating the old king and attempting to try to get inseminated by this king. This is why they tell you in the Bible that Jesus doesn't have an earthly father. But in the act of when Jesus is born, because Joseph and Mary also have a baby, or who the other couple also have a baby, the angel is mentioned as being the one who impregnated. In fact, the ancient knowledge says the angel is the one who impregnated her. So what it comes out to is, because I know all this knowledge, I've read all this knowledge, I've experienced all this knowledge, is that the act here is to get the woman pregnant through a male that becomes possessed by a nobility, an actual czar coming from Sirius, okay, which is an ancient ancestor. If you would like it or not, this is unapologetically, like it or not, these women are responsible for bringing in were responsible for bringing in these energies. Now, why were they doing that? It was to create what can be called a proto-human. Proto-humans. This means that humans, even that are slightly blended, slightly different, have different intelligences. And in fact, this entire ritual was the marriage ritual of this culture, and fractions of this ritual still stands today in the Arab cultures, with the beheading of the goat, which is really to actually get the spirit who actually possesses the male out of the male once the woman is impregnated, by cutting the neck of the goat, and then the blood in the death creates the spirit runs to the blood of the death, because it is a serum, meaning that it is a part goat spirit. And this is also because the fallopian tubes are the ram horns of a goat. So all of this stuff is what I'm saying. You're watered down. They ain't telling you this. They're giving you this watered down version like a kid, because they're like, oh, well, he can't handle the real bards and the bees. He can't handle the sedge and the bee. She can't handle the sedge and the bee. So we can't tell these kids what it's really about and what's all really happening, that we brought the ancestors in through Sirius. That Sirius is the boat. It's the Stratus. It's the one carrying the Elohim. Or that during certain times of alignments when children are born, that those Elohim then possess the male when he's going into his orgasmic stage. And then he inseminates the woman with a seed that's part him, but mostly a part Zarin, which is an interloper, or basically a go-between, an evangel, a lord, meaning something that is actually to be over humanity and actually rule over humanity. I'm not saying this is bad or good. What I'm saying is this is what was going on. These were the laws and the rules and the edicts. These beings came in during their time to give examples of how the big thing works. They taught knowledge, wisdom. If you see the Hindus, as they're called now, they had it going on over there. You see the Kemetans, they had it going on over there. You see Africa, or Alkebulan, they had it going on over there. You see Nubia all the way down to Kandy, all the way down into to Angkor Wat, right? They had it going on over there. So where was it not going on? And when I looked to Russia, I started seeing a pattern of it somehow not necessarily going on over there yet, meaning this awareness of who nature is, who earth is. When you say Aya, Aya is another name for the snake. It is another name for the great serpent. So when you say ayahuasca, who could we be talking about except for the great serpent? Right? The vines, the trees, the old world serpent, that the anima mundi. Okay? So let's rewind here. Let me give you some deep knowledge. Because all this now, let me finish this. All of this gets usurped. Now, it's because also, when I say, oh, there's these bloodlines that are coming through, and there was only two, all right? Imagine now it's a hydra. Many other bloodlines come through, because, see, the women ultimately on the planet, ancient mother, grandmother, all the way back, are actually responsible for what beings get into the planet. Hello? Okay? Those wombs are responsible for what beings can even get into the planet. So they were the real laws and the rules and the ones holding up the decree. They were the real Saturnalians, if you may, for sure. That's why I said Saturn is not actually just a male. It's more like a Mrs. Doubtfire, if anything. But the reality is they were the ones holding up that rule, because they had to hold up these customs. And sure enough, when you read in the book, They talk about how meticulous this ritual is done. This is not, oh, let's go get pregnant and have a moon child over in Los Alamos or wherever and shoot off some rockets at everybody and kill everybody. This is, let's maintain the purity and the essence of our existence through these cultures. And let's harbor in and usher out continuously the life that gives us life. Okay. So in these rituals, there's a specific process, and this cannot be messed up. It cannot be messed up, because if it becomes unclean, and this is what it says, this is not Sevan making stuff up, but you'll see it in all of the real code books. If it becomes unclean, either the neophyte, or that's why neophytes are not allowed around when magical properties and magical principles are being conducted, because they amplify their neophyte shit all over everything, and then they desecrate the ritual. And what this does is it's like offending someone. And let me show you how this happens. Let's say I go to your great-great-grandfather, right? Your great-great-grandfather. You imagine your great-great-grandfather, you know, he's got those hard knuckles, the broad back and everything, right? And then we start talking to great-great-grandfather. In how we talk today, I can tell you within the next 2 or 3 sentences, he's going to be offended. Why? Because in his time, everybody spoke to each other totally different. First of all, for you say anything to me, ask for anything to me, we need to first connect. Like, how you doing? I'm giving thanks. How's your family doing? Great. How's Zimbabwe? He's fine. What's going on with? How did land work out? So there's this whole protocol that's got to go on, that we check base with the things that are most important, that really connect us, before I start asking you questions. Okay. And talking to you. Okay. That's a part of respect. Now notice how when that person who's speaking in the new slang, yo, what's up, old man? He's talking to grandpa's like right away turned off. Original Saturnalian. I'm done. These y'all niggas, y'all young. I'm out. And that's it. Right? So imagine then that that's also how the other side, when you're talking about the higher aspects of the two twined serpents, that the spiritual ones, the ones that hold the loftiness, they are in this ultra respect with the linguistic system, the semantics. And this is why, like, so coming in, saying it wrong, feeling wrong, doing it wrong, creates a contamination. And this is what it explains. And when this happens, it invites another spirit in. It gives an opening for what they call a disagreeable, because all of the beings are balanced out themselves, just like Solomon knew between angelic and angelic and demonic, or what's called maleficent and beneficent, which you need to know both. You need to know the powers of the two to keep them in balance. But that meant that there was a disagreeable side. So if you did this wrong, and this is why marriage was sacred, sex was sacred, producing a child was sacred. If you did that wrong, you actually would produce an unclean child. And this child would have a dis-ease. Now, a dis-ease means that somehow in this process, and I'm just giving it to you, I'm giving it to you raw about how this really works. In this process, the entity did not become appeased. It's almost like he was about to climax and he didn't. You know, when that doesn't happen, everybody kind of leaves with this debt. Like, what didn't happen? It's like you're about to eat something, but it falls on the ground and you still put the spoon in your mouth and you can feel that it's still missing. This is literally what happens. The appeasement does not happen. So a disease is created. It's literally like a debt. And that debt is a hereditary debt. Until that debt is paid off, the DNA will reflect the damage. It will reflect the debt. Okay? So this is why the whole producing children and all that, totally sacred thing. Because then, since that's your child, when you leave here, you actually go resonantly, like antennas, right to your child. And you start talking, yo, I'm here. And the child hears, or maybe they can't even hear at all with the third ear. And they hear, and they say, here I am. But if the child doesn't say, here I am, meaning if the child doesn't say, I recognize that you are my parent and you're on the other side, you're talking to me, which most kids in the Western culture don't, that being is locked out of their own self. So now they're not even in their vehicle. They're watching their vehicle move around, meaning something that they actually still connect to, but a smaller version of them still going through their own experience. And they're on the outside like, hey, don't go that way. Hey, don't do that. Hey, it's about to be your whole prophecy. Ah, he's in the club. It's literally like something is trying to make him do the wrong thing. Ah, yeah, it's because there are beings out here that know this knowledge. That's what I was saying. SARS. This is what the whole Russiagate thing is now about, is they're finally about to drop the big bomb on everybody and explain to everybody how Russia has been controlling so much of the programming that is going on in this culture, because they're practicing the laws of Sun Tzu. They appeared weak to everyone during this time of when the Soviet Union, perestroika, all that, the perestroika deception, when it collapsed. Okay? Oh, it's collapsed. It's over. We're gone. It's just like what they say that in Pharaoh was sucked down into the sea. See, now in adepthood, we know that Pharaoh is not the name of the original Kemetan Nisut Bit Khazar, meaning the one that actually was over everything. His name was not Pharaoh. It was Nisut Bit, right? BTY, right? So Pharaoh this is Pharaoh. You're looking at Pharaoh. Is the last dynasty to step into Kemet. And when they say that, and this is what this whole Tartaria is really about, all the people who uncovered mud flood, Tartaria, it's because when they say that, and this is the joke, that Pharaoh disappeared with his army into the sea, what that is a code for saying, and they went into hiding because they could not rule from their thrones to the level that they wanted to rule. And they went into the sea, meaning they got on their boats and they went into places that nobody even knew about to rule from those places, like Malta. Okay? And them being able to pull themselves away from the establishment allow people to start believing that they no longer existed. And this is the intelligentsia. This is now what comes out today as the Illuminati, as they continue to steal names. They always steal names, okay? So the reality here is that this is your Tartaria, that everybody still is clueless. Even the people looking through all of these different pieces of paper and all this stuff that they're finding and they haven't connected. Tartaria disappeared because they wanted it to disappear. Because these people faked their death, if you may, in order to be able to open up and control an empire through laws and rules and ethics that they have learned through the intelligentsia, which is the original name. Again, actually, the original name is the perfectionabilist. Okay, the original name of the Illuminati is the perfectionabilists. Okay, perfectionabilist. And then next, they became the intelligentsia, right? And then next, they became the Illuminati, right? And then next, they got some more names. AI, okay? Central intelligence, okay? So what this is also about, and I just want to sidebar really quick here so I don't forget about this glorious gem, is about when you grow up in any of these empires of the United Empires, the United are all projects, okay? So when you grow up in these United projects with the Brothers Grimm as your nursery rhymes and all these different codes and semantics that they've already tested out and killed even people with, testing out over hundreds and thousands of years, okay? When you get into this fake falsehood, because that's not really you create what's just called a form now. I won't even call it an eidolon because that's something people like, eidolon, oh shit, that's too much. He's complicated. It's a form, okay? Just like a form that you fill out. So what's created is a form. And through this form, when I say to you, even things like good and bad, which didn't exist in the ancient times, there was no concept of good and bad. When I say to you things that, when I say anything to you, it creates a picture in your mind because of the form that you're in. And if you did not have that particular form, I could say these same things to you and you would visualize something totally different. So what they have done is they've created all these forms, and this is why this is what we're deprogramming. They've created this form or format or template, and people find themselves into that format and that template, okay? And then what happens then is because that is something real, that is something spiritual, that's a talismanic configuration, okay? So in the spiritual world, we can see that. We can see it. Like if I go and open the third eye and I'm looking at you and you have one of these, I can actually see it right there, either over you and interloping on you and hooked in your back, or right next to you and slightly off the body, depending on how much it's merged. And this is where the term private eye comes from, okay? Investigator, okay? Private eye. This is actually a reference to the all-seeing eye, or what was learned through the all-seeing eye and the knowledge of the all-seeing eye, which is Murugan, which I believe is Hiram Abif, which is the knowledge that in a culture, which Hiram Abif was also, and Murugan created cultures. In this culture, you create a form through the language, the Devangari, these different languages. You create a form through the language, and you can actually watch everyone through the language. It's like a part of how our let's say that serpent side of us, that intelligent serpent side of us has that fixed onto it. That's what the Uraeus means. It means that you're a private eye, that you can actually see through, you can see everything from the forms. So when people adapt the form, which is the language, you can see them on the microcosmic plane because they're just codes. And what they do, you can see what they do because they act out in the language since they've adapted to it and they don't know what they're really doing. Like they know not what they do. And so the private eye can actually see them. And that's where that symbolism actually comes from. So going forward, so that's what I mean. Like people could be way out of their league dealing with this kind of thing. It's like we need to elect someone to actually just deal with this. If you're out of your league in this, it's like, well, how many of these people are around? Last time I checked, looking into even the Aleppo book that I have over here and all these Freemasonic guides, knowing that these were institutions that were overrun already by these same people that I'm talking about right now. How many of these people are actually not just with them? Notice the news is only consisting of them. Like they literally get out there like they're dealing in a live reality show / Hollywood. And they get out in front of everybody and they play these games, right? But look at this. They play these games, meaning they start playing the both side game on you first. Some people call that the Hegelian. Don't these look similar now that they're right next to each other? Even deeper, now that you see these together, is this starting to ring a bell to you? Let's just put this here and put this here. Because see, you know, like iron sky, what these colors mean, when you use red and black dominantly, it actually means basically like Mars is the red color, black is Saturn. So it's basically saying war and death. Okay. Versus when you use colors in sequences, it's because you could speak with colors, right? But when you use red and white by itself, it actually means justice and victory because the white is pure and the red is Mars. Mars is the warrior and he's white. So he's bringing forth justice and victory. But if he's black, he's bringing forth death. You see what I mean? So with these colors combined, which is also World Stars colors, because of course they're completely operated by the same factions that are pushing this news. That's why they killed Q. So the reality is not that it's anything positive going on over there anyway, but they were like, wow, this is a very deceptive thing too. We need this completely. So they went over and got that through another man's weakness. So the reality is here is that now it should start looking a little clearer to you. Now you have this being set up, which is one side versus another, but mainly everybody versus each other. Why? Because they learned this. This little small ragtag group of thieves actually learned this from their daddy, which is basically how the Chinese empire had been running itself for years under this socialist depression that they put everybody in, where nobody has any motivation anymore to do anything. And this is what also the U.S. is rapidly heading into, or thought it was heading into, before I disrupt the entire damn thing. And you disrupt the entire thing because you carry that level of power. You would write that in your laws. You would put that, you wouldn't live in the reality where this was allowed to go on and you actually didn't do something about it that actually changed it. But we would have to do that together, and we're doing that together. So let me just keep going on with this. So the next thing here is that, so the laws of Sun Tzu specifically talk about appearing weak, okay, as being one of the best ways of actually getting the drop on your enemy. Another one is your enemy is my friend. Okay, you remember that one. Your enemy is my friend. This just means that, again, if we both have if I have somebody that I'm against and I know somebody else is against them, I probably could benefit from partnering with the other person, and they probably would be more to appeal to me partnering with them because we have an enemy in common. So we become friends through this enemy. And that's actually the number one reason why they play this both side thing. Is just to keep that machine that they use against everybody well greased. So we can keep enemies going on. Oh, that's your enemy. Or you don't like those kind of people. Or you don't like that kind of food. Or you don't like that religion. Or you don't like that. Well, they like it. So you need to, and then, carry on then. Keep churning the waters. Because remember, all of our conflict, God does not care. Okay? Like the higher beings and, oh, they're crying. No, they're not. This is called churning the ocean. This is called, I think, the Ahuras and the Asuras, towing the good ones and the bad ones, the malefic and maleficent, who are all on the same side. It's like, what is a person's weakness but your strength? What is a person's weakness but your strength? That we're pieces that fit together. We're all part of a whole. So when we're missing and we're not connected to each other, all you will see is continuous fractions and weaknesses and distortion within everything that you are viewing. So then if you start to judge that rather than put yourself back together and actually complement each other, then you will all be headed into to nothingness. And to me, that's the lesson. The lesson here is non-judgment. It's universal, to actually become universal so you can exist in a universal space. But until then, that old king, that draconian serpent, and all of its forms that it keeps taking, because it's the karma of the world. You see, the karma of the world is every action and every deed and everything is all coalescing in the DNA. It's like a record keeper. It's just writing down everything and then passing it on to the next generation. Writing down everything, passing on to the next generation. That's karma. So this means that we're riding in this big debt and we need to be able to balance out before we leave here. And that balancing out, you'll have incentive to do this if you realize metaphysically what it would cost us to have to end up not graduating through this experience. So we have to graduate. We have to complete this path. So going forward, what we realize is that these two bloodlines, again, now mind you, I don't want people to think that these entities are playing with everybody at all. Meaning that if I'm not trying to get you to think that, oh, these bloodlines are really our friends. This is beyond friend. This is like when you go and you do something wrong in your mother's house and she whoops your ass. Is she your friend? That's about how confusing it would be. Because you're like, well, yeah, because she just wants me to be better. But you don't feel like that right then, right? You got a whole nother point of view. And in your point of view, this is the evilest creature you could ever know. And she's totally abusive. You see what I mean? So the perspectives here would change. And just like oscillating through perspectives, you could stomach any of what I'm going to explain to you. But you got to realize why it's important for you to realize what's going on rather than jumping into a baby-like emotional fit every time the truth has actually been brought before you. So what's happening is you got two serpents, very powerful in every single respect that they could create with their power. And now these two serpents are actually over the world. And this was like in the past. Okay, this is what I'm explaining to you. This was the Zayrin. Okay, and their job and duty was to actually make sure that there was rules and laws and to enforce those rules and laws. So that way the human race, if you want to call it, can make the transistence from proto, which was basically more of a serpentine human being, to the mammalian, which is more of a serpentine mammalian blend, amphibian blend, and mooses and all the rest of what else is in the bag of seeds of the DNA. And in that process, the ones that were responsible for kind of ushering, that's why they kind of see them as the herders, if you may. Okay, that's where all this stuff comes from. They took that nobility and that responsibility, and then they just took the signet rings and everything and started acting out as that. And then now people are like confused because they're like, well, shit, I think these are the evil ones. The usurpers are, but the ones before then, I can't really tell you that they were evil or good, because they meshed out punishment for your mistakes. And that's what the whole laws and things were about. And that was a process of the growth, because if you didn't have certain forms of pain, because all this is about pain in this reality, your measure is based on how much pain you can take or fathom, because pain is connected to fear. So meaning the ones who explore the reality the most are the ones in which fear and pain does not affect them as much as a person who feels it even so empathically that they can't even move without feeling the pain of the moment. Do you understand? So thus they go nowhere. They stay isolated. They stay in their minds. Okay. And I'm still talking about two energies that you can't really gauge. Well, does that mean that's the good one? Is that the bad one? It's like, well, you can't even decide. Do you rather be Red Bull man jumping out of the plane and fearless? Or do you want to be Mama Hen that's in the house by yourself protecting all the children? Which one do you really want to be? And that's why I said there's two snakes, because those two snakes cover every aspect of being. That's why that's the Sephiroth, all the globes that you go through and the energy that moves through those globes. Okay. But what I'm saying, though, is that it was a real responsibility. Somebody through the lineage would say, well, my dad is Zayrin. We know the ritual was perfect. No disease. I am shiny. And I think this is what we should do and how we should keep building this. And most of the time, because they had the wisdom, which was what you needed as an elder, everybody went with that because it was the best idea. And this is how it actually worked until the usurpers, which you're seeing that someone took the Zayrin knowledge and took Zar, which is the matriarch, and made it a patriarch. Now, who is the most instrumental at creating patriarchs around here for the last 1,000 years, other than Ah, this is it. This is what you're ignoring. This is why you see that double-headed eagle, the most hated bird. This is why so many people are still trying to figure out, like, well, what happened to this? What happened to this guy? Is that Jesus? Jesus, is that you? This is where this was going on and before any of the later stories that you got, because this goes back even further and further and further and further. And then what you realize is that these were the Khazarian troglodytes in the mountains, pissed off because the Moho Mandan priestesses were ruling over all the shit, and that they felt totally disempowered about their ability to actually carve a way in this world. So through cunning, through deceit, and through some of the dark sisters, which are also basically the dark wombs that brought forth the entities that allowed them to build their armies, they decided to overthrow the matriarchal dominion. Now, this takes place also in the sky. And it always doesn't go so rough. Like when you're in the beginning of the age and there's a water birth, it's a smooth transition. But when you're going right into the age of Kali Yuga, where everybody's going to go into a darkness, well, the beings that are going to come forth are going to be configured to do that. And this was that configuration. But this configuration is now obsolete. But it's in still operation. So let me just let you understand again, meaning you got to actually deprogram it from your consciousness, because they have a hold of the media. I told everyone before, the whole Hollywood thing, it came from Russia. And I need to pull the video, but you just have to trust me on this one. There's a video that lays out specifically that there was this big flip that was happening in Russia where they needed people to get into the government more. They needed people to kind of elect who they wanted to have as leaders over them. And this is very instrumental, because once you accept that this is going to be your leader, it's like, but you made him your leader, just like they're doing with the Trump thing. So they needed that to happen. But people were like, no, we don't need government. I don't want any rulers over me. None of that. That's how people were. They were buck. Okay. So, and this is Russia. So hats off to the Russian people. I'm talking about the governments there. I'm not talking about the people. Okay. The people have been now under socialism, which they're trying to give you now first as social media and then as something totally different once they have all the data. Okay. This is the same system. So what they did was they knew they couldn't get a control of the people. So they concocted the scheme of actually getting into the people's mind through other people that actually knew. Somebody said their brain hurts. Go massage yourself. Go turn it off. Come back later. It's like, wah, cry me a river. Am I the one that invented this for you? You're the one. I try to get you out of the reality. Don't tell me about your headache. Or just start going in on folks. Keep it clean in there. So what happened is that I'm just saying, man, it's like think about, I'll just rewind here for a minute. Think about how often you even see me here. Why do you not see me here? If you can think about the millions of reasons why I would not be here and why I would be doing something else. Today I'm here because I have a fervent passion and desire to consistently help people. I have no restrictions in doing that. There's not something I don't know. There's not some big demon that can defeat me, and that death even itself is but another dream. So the truth is that I'm here because I will continue to remain here as long as much of the DNA is still in this state of consciousness that this is too much, or this is something they can't accept, because it is such a cop-out. Like these days, especially for men and women, like you see guys, they're not even working anymore. They don't even have jobs. And I'm not saying you got to run and go work in the matrix, but I'm just saying, like, you got your sister working, you got your mom working, and then you're sitting over there complaining about what the kombucha tastes like. You got multimillionaires sitting back taking glamour shots saying, hey, look at my picture. If you tell me which one you like better, I'll give you a like. What the hell is going on? And it's like, that's why I'm saying I don't really want to keep I wouldn't want to deal with personally people who are not prepared to fess up to what is going on, because they would be the private eye. They would be by proxy, even central intelligence, because their form can be controlled with the trigger. The moment something whispers in their ear, hey, blah, 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 blah. Or, hey, you're tired. Hey, this is too much for you. Hey, turn this off. Hey, now you got them on your back. You see what I mean? That's what people are not realizing. Even in the DNA, now you have it inside the DNA. You're eating the food that the DNA is being tampered with. But all this could be diffused by you coming to a certain stage of awareness, because that stage of awareness, I'm explaining you why, that stage of awareness, it activates this energy. And the energy is high vibratory. It moves faster. And the equipment that is being used, it just fuses out. It fuses out. Literally, it's designed for a low vibratory being. That's why there's so many things to try to keep you in low vibratory. Just like with electronics, like I got to decide what power range I'm using with the electronic. I can't say this one's for the whole entire power spectrum. That's not possible. So the equipment, if you may, which you can't see is metaphysical, that is being used is phased into a certain vibration. And with that vibration and them continuously triggering that form and saying, again, I'm depressed. Again, I'm confused. Again, this is too much. Again, I wish it was all over. Especially as, oh my goodness, the being that you really are, who you truly are into there. I can't even, I'm like, is that you? It's like, damn, they got him too. You would be like a zombie to me if I was looking at you doing that, knowing who you truly are. So if I'm going to play the game with you, then I also become that. This is how this proxy to proxy system actually works, how everybody's policing each other. So your normalities, I'm convicted by your normalities. Start stepping down what I'm saying and what I believe about myself, which is what everybody's doing with each other. Then all of a sudden, I'm still just doing you the common courtesy of doing that so you don't feel outshined. But then subconsciously, I'm doing it to myself. Since actually everything is backwards, but subconsciously, I'm doing it to myself. So now I'm running around imagining that I'm actually in the same lowly state as everybody else, trapped inside of an illusion that nobody even knows how to unlock. Because nobody wants to accept that maybe somebody may know what's going on and actually not see that as a form of conceit. You see, so this is something rigged consistently to tie knots and to keep everybody here. And then you got folks playing on the line, playing in the chat box, saying all sorts of weird, wild shit that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And you expect that not to just get me into a point like, whoa, this is the reality I'm experiencing. This is what I'm engaged in. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm investing my time. I expect everyone to think this way. These are the people that I'm around. This is what they think about me. This is how much they care. This is how much they know what's going on, right? And then start making those assessments and start making those assessments now because you're right on the cusp. When do you think you would insert or drop yourself into a world as a time traveler? Do you think you would drop yourself in after the situation popped? Hell no. Do you think you would drop yourself way before it popped? Hell no. Because why? Shit, that would be too early. I'd be like Mount Shasta. I would have came in, set the record straight for a minute, and then somebody would have come and drove over it like they did Gurdjieff's teachings. I wouldn't come too late because then it's too late. There would be absolutely nobody to assist. Everything would already be lost. So where would I come? Right before it's about to pop. So where would you come? As a professional traveler, you would come right when it's about to pop. But here we are at a stage where if you imagine that all of a sudden you're going to start a tutelage, you're going to come into university, and you're going to actually know everything about this when you start, you must don't observe trees. Trees, when they drop the fruit, which contains the seed, don't look like trees. So this lets you know that first you would drop, your flesh is getting eaten, you turn into a seed, then you go down to the orbit or the depth of what it would be for you to grow as the tree that you are, and then you start up from there. And then if you pop out the surface and keep growing, then you'll actually go into a full-grown tree. That's exactly what we're existing with here now. So we have to really be assessing what's happening and be forthcoming at actually growing, because we don't actually understand completely what are the ramifications if we don't do that. It may be beyond just a simple repeat. You know, it looks like there are bigger ramifications to this, but beyond, and also instead of looking into that darkness, because you can't even see what would happen if we don't do this, you can see even clearer, though, what would happen if we do pull this off. Based on the contrast now and all the crazy things that have already happened based on how they were running it, even if we built small nucleuses that didn't run it that way, things that way, and actually return to the structures that we know with this master knowledge that we've already gained, which they cannot come against. If we can create structures, places, anything that we created, if it went with that same blueprint of perfection, then we will overturn all of this. And that is my true optimism. That is why I know that this can be pulled off, because it can happen in so many different ways. It's just not about knowing all the knowledge. It's just about clicking, if it clicks to you. And so every time I'm here, all I'm doing is saying things to you that may make it click. It's like I'm that old master that you told, hey, keep my stuff, and when I come back, give it to me. And then now you're here, and I'm showing you the stuff. And I'm like, do you remember any of this? Do you know who you really are? So let's keep going with this. So what I'm saying is that Sun Tzu, the art of deception, appearing to be weak. So this is why you're not suspecting that this has something even to do with Russia, because you're seeing Russia out there cold in the dark, right? When meanwhile, everything is red. And they're the first ones to call it red. China red, the red bloc, the red square, all of that is all coming from that same faction, okay? The red, right? Which you would call communism. Now, also, I want to say for the record, if you want to know about this kind of stuff, and this stuff, you need the hard code knowledge because you got somebody else to go and talk to, I'll tell you that this is exactly how much we can say that, let's say the conscious community has actually been up on the game rather than just dreaming all the damn time. Because notice how this is the John Birch Society, which has been up for about 80 years. Okay? About 80 years at least. These are what you would say are true patriots, Americans, the older gentlemen, 60, 70 years old even now, that have always understood the infiltration that was actually happening within the United States. So this has nothing to do with your metaphysics. Okay? And that's why sometimes we got to have a broad palette. You need to understand metaphysics, but you need to understand the ways of the world. You need to understand as much as possible because it's all one system. And once you get the whole story, it just all starts folding into itself. But a big part of that is just remembering people already have done so much research on what has gone on between Russia and the United States in the fake Cold War. And even when you see the Nazis coming in on Project Paperclip and all that kind of stuff, that's all the same group now bringing their psychological structures into the United States and into the United Kingdom and into all the Uniteds and the unions to begin the process of brainwashing the people in order to create an entire empire inside of their minds. And then I'll pick up from where I left off on before I was interrupted by thoughts of, see, because when you think you're tired, then I get tired. All right, that's what I get for hanging around you. So if you're confused, now I'm confused. And that's all I meant to say about what I just said for the last 10 minutes. So where I left off at is that just understanding that, so Russia, using these laws of Sun Tzu, appears weak, uses the perestroika deception, creates, where I left off at was how they had already started realizing that they needed people to actually elect all of the people that they wanted to put over them. That it wasn't going to be enough to keep forcing them to do things. It was going to keep collapsing the empire, collapse after collapse. So things you're seeing with Trump right now, Stalin. Things you're seeing with the governments, Bush, Lenin. So they already went through all of that. This is why when you didn't go to school, it benefited you, but in certain ways, but in other ways it didn't. Because this is the stuff that you wouldn't have any recollection of. It wouldn't be important to you. You would think it wasn't important. But this is important because this is the exact society that we're in now. And you can even see the after. When you're looking at Russia, you're seeing the after of the United States if this keeps going in this direction very shortly. We're talking 2022 time, 2023, 2024. In that time, everybody burned out. Nobody having any bread anymore. Everybody got, the same income. Everybody's categorized into a specific category. Judgment Day happens where your internet data is fed out to major corporations and all the places that handle the borders. All the borders become all the corporations become the rulers of the world. And then like the guy that wrote the Hidden Colors documentary, he just had a recent situation where he went to the UK and they stopped him at the airport and told him they ain't going to allow him in the UK. This is a real thing. And then he said, well, why can't I? He said, well, we just got a letter here that says that you are harmful to the mindsets, basically, of the people in the UK. So this is not like something that says the Department of Homeland Security says that you've committed an act of terror. It doesn't say any of that. It just says you can't come in. And they promptly turned him around and sent him home. So do you not see, just like you see on all this stuff that's happening now with all the data that you've already written, all the things that you've already listened to, you've already been classified as a person that is non-becoming in their new system. So you have no choice but to create your own system. You have no choice but to understand what is actually being said. Choices and all that are over now. And that's why I said the sins of the fathers and the mothers weigh upon the children. So a lot of the stuff that's been happening in the past with the fighting in the bloodlines, because that's another thing to realize is that you had a supplanter, meaning you had people that said, well, we call it the third son. Okay. Here's another riddle. It's called the third son. And what this is a reference to is that now once the draconian laws start to become about property, once they start becoming about how much you own and how much you control, any kind of inheritance generally goes to the first son in the patriarchy. Okay. And also the second son is reserved just in case something happens to the first son. But the third son is sent to the priory. Okay. And what the priory is a place, and this is of course in the intelligentsia, this is in the constructions of the orthodoxy. The priory is a place where the priestcraft teaches you the ways of deception in order to find your way in the world to enrich the crown. Okay? So this is why you have so many secret society members, because the colonizers, if you may, and I'm just talking about that era, the colonizers had so many children, but they had no rights, really. They had no inheritances because they weren't the first son or even the second son. They were third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. If you ever want to ask yourself why there's so many secret society members, especially in the secret societies that we're dealing with today, it's because they were the children of many of this aristocracies and all that, but they didn't have an actual inheritance. So they had to go and do things for the crown, deceive, take over territories, start corporations, all these different things in order to get some footing. So do you understand what that's like? You're born into a family. You're like the fourth son. You have no inheritance. Everybody's big boyed up. Nobody's thinking about you. Your mother was just another vassal from an area that they took over. How are you going to get to the top? And you got coursing through your veins the debt of the last action of your father. Okay, so this is not the household where everybody wants to do well and do great things for people. This is not that household. As we talked about before, the kind people, nice people seem to insist it's only a specific group. I'm kind, but everybody is not like that. So get off of it already. And then what happens if you're not aware of that as a kind person? You get taken advantage of. So those that are not kind are mostly made up of opportunists. People who already come from families that literally, like mafia, if they say, well, I want to take over the computer industry downtown, your brother Jimmy's doing that already. You need to go over there and go over to the U.S. where there's almost nothing going on. Find your way there. And then when you get something, let us know. That's what you're dealing with. Okay, so that will answer, because sometimes people, they always like, well, how is there so many people that don't care about anybody? You know, because you're in pacifism. That's what the New Age movement was about. The reason why they were so interested, and we're talking about Russia again, so interested in this whole thing, like Ouspensky and Gurdjieff, and understanding a lot about the consciousness, and because they saw it as a way to directly manipulate people, to get them into such a passive aspect of being. Well, if you don't focus on that, then it's not happening. I'll be damned if it's not happening. It is happening. You're just choosing not to do anything about it. And to be honest, if you can't, it is better that you just don't know about it at all. But I can. And many people on this line actually can. You're able-bodied enough and you have the right kind of energy and the right kind of spirit and wellness of being to actually extend into something that would be an alternative for those who are only choosing to go into these lower dense vibratory, low dense vibratory experiences, because there's actually no other options. A simple movie could be a low dense vibratory experience for many people. So speaking of that, if you watch the movie Godzilla, they're telling it to you all right there. They're just out in the open with it. If you can imagine, Godzilla is the supplanter, the draconian king in their world, the patriarchal king. And so if you just imagine that and you watch the movie, you'll see every single thing that they're doing. They're release the Titans all at the same time. And, we got to count on Godzilla and all this, what they're talking about. They're just saying what's going on in the little sick sadistic world, because that is that same Hollywood that was brewing itself in Russia. You know, Russia, like you see in Cirque du Soleil, they've been big on the performances. Do you know how crazy it is? Like the ballerinas in the ballet, the show, the act. You forgot. You never knew. Russia was the ones who were originating all of that. And then they bought that system because they saw it to be very instrumental. And once a person started really liking an actor, if the actor said, vote for Stalin, then all of a sudden the person, because they're in that form, in that program, they go vote for Stalin. And they were like, this shit works. We're going to go everywhere and set up these industries, and that's how we're going to predominantly control the mind. And we're just going to get more creative and more creative at doing that. We're going to enlist these scientists, people who are actually the third and the fourth sons of the intelligentsia, the ones who actually have the educations but don't have any inheritance. We're going to put them over other places, and still they'll be higher where they go. You know, you go over there to Cameroon, Africa, you can be still as a lowly son, a king, because you can now colonize Cameronia. You see what I mean? And name it after yourself, just like the scientists. Oh, and name it after yourself. And then now you've done something to increase the family lineage. So what I'm saying is, if you were inside of that, you can see how all that's like, yes, I got a way to actually live up to something that I didn't do. And what they say, I can actually become an explorer. And you see, so that this is the prey. You see what I'm saying? And what they call this, there's a summary of all of this. It's called the white glove. And I told people about this a long time ago. It's called the white glove in Freemasonry. What that means is just this. Now, words like the Tetragrammaton and words like the Hallelujah actually have power attached to them. But see, the evil ones seem to have those words. They seem to even somehow use them in their songs. And then people would think, well, are those people related to those words and are bringing those energies in, and those energies are really belonging to those words? No. It's called the white glove. What they do is they open up a priory or a seminary. They bring in this unsuspecting lad. And now we're just talking about the spiritual affairs, not the business affairs. And that's why we know Freemasonry is divided into two sections. Spiritual side of things, business side of things, two totally different sides. So in the spiritual side of things, they get this adherent who is aspiring to actually go into illumination, right? He's all innocent. He's only thinking what he's read. And then they use him. They give him words. They give him different things to unlock stuff because they have all that knowledge, but they can't use it themselves. Remember, if they were using it with a crooked heart and with no ability to really assess completely its true power, it would not work. But they have this neophyte who's oblivious to what's really happening. And he's with all his heart singing this all night before, and then he makes contact. And because they still control him, they learn from that contact through him. It's called the white glove. Okay? So just be aware that everything has this workaround in the matrix. And the people who understand these laws of light and this knowledge and power actually know about these workarounds in order to get some of this stuff going on. So in conclusion here, now you have the entry of the Constantine Patriarchy, the theft of the Messiahship energetic metaphysical system. It's the theft of the Messiahship metaphysical system, because the Messiahship metaphysical system is actually designed in order for a person to realize how to raise their Kundalini, basically. How to know yourself. We've been talking about it for years. The diet, everything that you see with Ayurveda, everything that you see with acupuncture, and all that knowledge is all the Messiahship metaphysical activation system, okay? That's what the Bible in Orthodox religion removes. There's no discussion of chakras in the Bible. There's no discussion of food or diet in the Bible. There's no instructions of most of the stuff related to metaphysical power, like the energies. There's no instructions about spirituality or the study of spirits and what the spirits are capable of doing. There's no knowledge about even the water beyond intentions. You see what I mean? So that knowledge is designed to actually not be knowledge, but to actually appear as if it is knowledge, okay? So that's the play, is to bring in that system. And that's called the Constantine Patriarchy. They rule by the sword. The sword is symbolic of dividing mothers from fathers, sisters, and brothers. But they're talking about that spiritually. It's going to happen physically if it happens spiritually, right? And the spiritual cutoff is you cannot talk to your son after you're dead. You cannot talk to your daughter after you're dead. You're cut off because you don't have, you're praying to a false god. You've cut yourself off. The only God actually is your children. Your children are the synthesis of you, to be honest. And you're supposed to be worshiping them. And to be honest, people worship their children. You feed this thing on them. Feed this child all the time, right? You're feeding this child. You're taking care of this child. You're driving this child to school. And you're doing all this. That's worship. Stop taking the actual term and putting it into something that they've given you from Hollywood. Worship is, hey, you got to go to school today? Did he hurt you? Is everything okay? That's worship. Okay, so that's because you're worshiping the synthesis of you when you're giving your child the right upbringing, right? So continuing with this, now we have also this other thing that should be brought up to let you know that I'm telling the truth. You know, if it hasn't clicked in with you yet, just for the new members, I know those who've been here for a long time, they love this and they understand when there's another massive gem. So let's look at it really briefly. You see this? I'm just typing in here Stalin. Excuse me, 1 second. Lenin. Okay. Now, the image of Lenin, okay, that you're seeing, I'm going to show you how, and I reveal part of this on the whole deception between Lucifer and Venus, okay? But let me show you. You get it? You get it? The modern picture, which is curated for us, that you would think of in your mind when you think of the devil, is actually a picture, one moment, of Stalin. Okay? And that is done, or excuse me, Lenin. And that is done on purpose. Okay? That's a part of that semantic, linguistic, visual programming. And it's because, remember I told you that there was an act that needed to take place of Lucifer being merged in with Venus. And let me find my recorder so I can make sure I'm still communicating with everybody. Okay? So remember we talked about that. Okay, so what is lux? What is luxury? I'm about to show people what lux and luxury is in about a week. Okay, because I'm going to be so deep in luxury, which is nature, light, life, okay, that they're going to be probably jealous of my jewels and my gems of my life. Okay, and all I got to do is be laying in the river and having a good time. And then people will really click for them that, yo, that's luxury. Laying on this free beach, taking in this free sun, getting some of this free ocean water and minerals in my free skin. You see what I mean? Only till I go jump in the car do I start paying again. That is lux. That is light. Okay, so this whole Lucifer thing, as we talked about before, is theft of the ancient mother. It's a theft of nature. Nature is really the light bearer. She bears luxury. She creates life. Okay? And they wanted to merge this concept because remember, the Sudanese women that are responsible for bringing in this Syrian alien, which is what a lot of people love to talk about, they're the ones upholding this lineage of this power of the inheritance coming from the higher world into the lower world, which is called Venus's flight. As a princess, she must go to the ancient kingdom, which is the height, the nobility. She must become inseminated by the king through his weaknesses, which is known as preying on his passions or black magic. She is then impregnated. She can leave with the child because she has the womb, so she leaves the high kingdom. And then now she has this child with her, and this child is half high nobility and half lower nobility. And those are the two snakes. Upper Egypt, lower Egypt. Sunni, Shia. It's the upper body and the lower body and what it takes to govern them from the center. Because the entity, the greater star to rule the day, the upper half of the body, the lesser star to rule the night, not as if one is more powerful than the other, but just in the fusion. And so now you have that going on, right? So that's the power that we're talking about, this twofold. So they were responsible for holding that up until enters these people who take over the matriarch, name themselves czars after the original Zarin. And what I believe personally is they did have a child that they did through cunning and probably through rapier, because a lot of them are known to be rapers or rapiers, actually take the Holy Mother and then have a child with her and then claim that child as being the new nobility and that child being a male. Because before then, here's another big slam on the pavement of Thor's hammer on them. Just like Thor's daughter running, all the Thor's daughters running the strongest men in the world competitions. All of the women that were all the messiahs were women. And if not androgynes, before there became this idea of a masculine or a male messiah. Okay? Because a messiah means that you actually have blended the two entwining forces and brought them into the center of yourself to unlock the crystal cavern inside of your head, and young Ram breaks free from his restraints of judgment of good and evil and goes into the higher stages of consciousness. We know that. We've experienced that. It's amazing. So when we bring it back into this context of what's happening, we find that there's a cutoff. This is what the supplanter did. They cut everybody off from the holy bloodline of themselves, right? Like even when you think about bloodline, you start thinking about circulations and that other parts of your brain need this blood to even survive. And when you cut them off by making them believe that there's a whole nother ruler external that looks like, I don't know, your standard GQ model these days, it doesn't work out for you. And you have enough power to do that. Some people say, well, if it wouldn't just happen because of that. Oh, yes, it will. If you believe so much, because everything is about faith. If you believe so much, oh, the law of attraction, if you believe so much, then so may it be. And that's what happens if you cut yourself off. So that's what they did. That's what the sword did. They cut everybody off because they supplanted the empire. And because you know damn well that when you think about what can bring children into the world, it's only woman. And if you don't grasp that, meaning into the physical world, not into the world of the mind, okay? But if you don't grasp that, it's like, who are we even talking to? I'm talking to a fool. Can't you see that every day in your life? That the woman would be bringing forth life, so she's the real life bearer. And if you actually replace that system and put a male there, you get a barren society. And so that's why, as I said in the recent training that we've been holding in ambassador training, you get the corruption of this. So you get the corruption of the Saturnalian principle. So Saturn then becomes a male. Saturn then becomes barren. Saturn becomes bar. Everything becomes dry like a desert. Then you got these fake ass sheiks, when I'm really more interested in the Sheikah, with these turbans dressed like women, actually getting themselves impregnated now. That's why all these societies have that homosexual thing going on, getting themselves impregnated by the disagreeable entities who actually come into the male and the female from the rear. Meaning that in the book, it even explains that the interlopers, the ones that are disagreeable, function through the anal system. Okay? And so it takes for the person then to be broke. That's what it happens, is to break the person, because now you brought in the wrong entity. The ritual is unclean. The being that you brought in now is gonna break you. Okay, and this is what's happened in their societies. And now they're broken. They initiate others, break them. And then now there's rampant in there with the entities continuously populating, which it warns about in this book, that if these disagreeables start to propagate, because just like snakes, they keep producing, then the whole world will come off balance. Because you just have this entire organizational structure of people who are only looking to take, and not give. Okay? So this is what we're dealing with. And then, so now when we say, since Judea, my statement is since Judea, an emulation, a simulation. See, Judea is like America. Okay? When I say Judea or a Jew, I am not talking about anybody yet. Because just like when I say America right now, who am I talking about? Am I talking about quote unquote African Americans? Am I talking about Caucasians? Am I talking about who? Native Americans? Who am I talking about? I've said nothing. So even to say Jew, you said nothing yet. You only referenced Judea. And in Judea, if you understand what was going on during this time where the Khazarians came in, there was already a royal lineage functioning under the messiahship inside of Judea. And that's why all of that became the nest of where these spiritual conflicts started coming from. And then the lion, and this is how you know there's lies all over the place. They use the symbol of the lion, right? The lion is the symbol. Even in Sirius, the lion is also a symbol. Orion, the lion, is a symbol, okay? Now, you would have to be a fool and know nothing about nature at all to think that the male is the ruler of any lion-like structure. I'll pause on that for a minute. You would have to be a fool and not learned to think that the male lion is the ruler in a lion-like structure, or a canine, or what do you call it, the feline structure. Go look at it in nature. It's the female lion that goes and hunts. It's the female lion they're the ones running in the packs. So this is what you need to understand, that if they're emulating something, which they love to throw the lion of Britain, my ass, you're not the original lion. You're more like a dog. Like that's like a hybrid. So the reality is that original lion was a lioness. As we know, the Sphinx, that's actually the one they dropped. It was a female lion. And that female lion is very symbolic because that feline, the pussy, if you may, the pussy cat, I'll just make it, G-rated. That's what all that is referring to. And you would have to be an idiot not to just read that in the semantics and put it all together. But yet we're dealing with idiots sometimes, meaning that it seems like that it's not clicking. And so this patriarch comes in. This is improper order. You can't produce life from the opposite component that actually produces the withdrawal of life. So what I'm saying is that if you model the society, if you reverse the society, it would turn from vegetation, and this is how it works metaphysically. It will be lush vegetation, and then that would turn into either one or two extremes, either extremely cold or extremely hot. This is what happens when you mess it up. So if you mess up the system for whatever reason, and that's what I'm saying, they're sabotaging our system and we're taking notes from them. Once they invert everything, put the male where the female should be, now all of a sudden it's going to get either too hot or too cold. So you know the places that are too hot. Now what happened to Russia? Because every land that has done this, especially when they do it against their mother, which is nature, and the people that are native to those areas, the indigenous, if you may, which just means broke. So that's just the wrong term. So anytime this happens, you get an extreme. So sure enough, you go to Arab Emirates, they'll buy a tree, but there's none there. It's all desert, right? You go to Russia, nothing there, because they are the Tsars. They are the sheiks of today. But they are the old Saturnalian, the usurpers, if you may, the thieves, the supplanters of the Saturnalian Empire. And then they got everybody confused. Now, if you say Satan, you're supposed to be referring to them as the devil. And then when you're referring to them as the devil, you're referring to Stalin. Then when you refer to Lenin as the devil, then you have to admit that Lenin, it must be Lucifer, right? Which is what they write in their books. But now you're saying that Lenin is Venus, which is the mother. And just like that. And it's all subconscious. It's all communism, the comms, the communication, the intelligentsia, the private eyes, CIA, all operating this shit, all in the background, on the conscious networks, all in these conscious, the Netflix, and all in the movie theaters, all in most of the large spiritual institutions, right? It's sick. Even having to do work every single day to build what I build, to know that people are in such a great deception. Even the stomach talking to some of the people sometimes and seeing them mention the outfits that I know to be under the deception and not be able to say anything because nothing is built to actually get them from there to the next stage. Because that's also what you got to know. It's just a simple psychological assessment. If you tell people in the beginning what is the problem and you don't provide them with a solution, you only plunge them into greater despair. So when we're talking about a total solution for all this, we're the total solution. That's why I said the Mindful app and what's being created, it's only the beginning. It's just the process of us coming together and unifying ourselves, but unifying ourselves in a way where we know who we are. That's why we bring in this numerology, the enealogy, all that's going to let you know exactly who you are so you can know who you're going to become. It's first to identify the personality, to get all the facts of the personality so you can drop the personality and get into being. Instead of all this, that's why social media and socialism, what they're doing is they make you curate everything. Everything you post, every picture you send. This is not the booger in your nose. This is not you up in the morning with the eye, with the sleep in the eye. This is you sitting in an Insta filter with your skin all clear and you know your chin thinned out, right? And then some fairies rolling around your head and shit that doesn't even happen in real life. And this is the image that you're sending to another person. And then they look at it and they send it to you. And I don't want to, again, harp on just the action. I'm not saying because you do that, you're the worst person. I'm just saying that this is the point-to-point system. And it's running amok. And now it's become a real issue because the controlling of whether we even eat tomorrow sometimes feels like it's in the hands of someone who doesn't need that level of power to shift the world and to take, like, remember, this is already happening. People are sitting in Western empires, even on YouTube right now. It hasn't come to your door yet. And I trust that what we're creating won't allow it to. But the truth is that many people have already been ransacked and destroyed that were chaste and pious. So if it was just about that, then it wouldn't have happened to them either. Meaning that if you go into some of these countries, like even when I say the Jehovah's Witness, right? Like you look at a Jehovah's Witness, man, they ain't doing nothing wrong, man. They still wearing the long skirts, got the pure face. And, it just looks like they're being preserved because they're not actually getting into the demonic. But yet and still, the overarch has them as his personal feeding crop. You see what I'm saying? Even in the Mamupinun and those that are actually chaste and pious in the Arab cultures, the women that are virgins, right? The ones that just giggle and laugh all the time. They've never seen anything wrong. No horror movies. That's Jadin. That's unkosher, if you may. That's not. And then they caught bombs. So if this was about us just being the most chaste and pious, and that was going to allow us to be released in a way in which we were happy when we came from it, when we left from this, and then we felt fulfilled, then it would have happened for them. You see what I mean? So that's why I say, don't go into the gentle good night. Rage against the dying of the light. Like, make sure that on your watch that it's written about you that, yeah, we pulled it over on everybody, but not on this one and not on this one. They totally got out. And now they're looking like they're trying to get other people out. So let that be your story. So in conclusion here, we know about this infiltration. As I said, the identity forms are the eidolons. They're the private eyes. So be watchful around you and never put yourself into a state where you can't claim the space and control the space. Okay? Don't put yourself into any vulnerable positions with people that you're not capable of checking back on too tough, especially if you're talking about opening your third eye and trusting them with your spiritual wherewithal, because there's an intruder. Just like what the societies experienced, because all the societies were pretty much people who weren't practicing Catholicism and were studying metaphysics. And when those societies got really big, they were infiltrated by the same people that wanted to push across Catholicism. And that has happened now. So if you're around and dealing with that kind of stuff, be on guard. The next thing is that you got now 200 years at least of Russian socialist programming. If you wanted to understand more about how that works and not just take my advice, go to the John Birch Society and just look at a couple videos again and refresh your memory, coming from a 70-year-old white male who has nothing to gain by deceiving you about this knowledge, because he's sitting in an entire peer group of others investigating the same thing. Then you'll learn it straight. That this whole thing about Russiagate and Russia being involved in the elections and all that is another play to finally reveal to this side of the world that Russia's been controlling all this time, the media, the news, the social media, and all these people that are in control have already sold out a long time ago to what I feel like is one of the only motherlands that continuously pushed industry. That's why it's a hammer and a sickle, continuously pushed industry when other countries were just simply embedded in their acts of digging in deeper in with nature and what was going on around them, because of the fact, which is revealed, that if there is no organized religion, I mean, if there is no Christianity, if you may, or Catholicism, people adapt what you could call a culture, some would say a religion, that is based on their environment. So if you grew up by the ocean, all of the entities that you would be looking to would somehow be connected to the ocean and water. And this is stuff that you would be passed down to you from your grandparents. If it was the desert, if it was the jungle, all the entities or the energies that would be dealt with in the tribe, which were ancestors, the frog and all those different things, would become the quote unquote totems or gods of that particular tradition. But this also equates to why, when you take someone that is, let's say, in the ocean tradition and then place them in the mountains, you may have some conflicts of interest because you're bringing in two different elements. And these two elements don't generally fuse well together, because even generally through the DNA and all that other thing, the environment has got them kind of different. And so this is where you can see where there's still an ultimate purpose in blending those people, because the children of those now inherit the synthesis of both of those genuses. But just understand it as it really is. That's where conflicts come from. People from the water coming in with people of the fire or the desert, and them having the disagreements within how they believe and what they believe in. Okay? So just understand, we're not devoid of conflict. And this is another big lie. Like human beings, watch children. They got the malefic side. The malefic is for us to realize a lot of things. That's a whole nother lesson of why the malefic force exists. Continuing here, as you can see, it's a maxi. Well, it's finished at this point, but I talked about the Black's Law. Stop referring to yourself as a color, black or white. That's what I'm saying. They want to make it just black and white so they could put you both into the same box. So black folks, white folks, if you're still calling yourselves that, believe you are that. Don't think that you've inherited anything. Black by the word actually means pale or white. White by the word actually means black by the concept. So this means both are in the trap. Both are now forfeiting the 13th Amendment, which makes them criminals. And now that you're a criminal, then your children can be worked. Everybody can be worked around you. You can be taken advantage of. Just like the non-consent actually disappeared off the internet, like things like that would protect you, that are part of your treaty and your law of the cosmos, you no longer have because you're referring to yourself as a code. And so that's the ID, that's the numbers. It's just a quick absolution, right? Absolute. Be sure that this is not you. This may be a character that plugs in, that you operate, remotely as far as that ID or that name or that character or that form. But know that how not to allow that to become the spy, the usurper, the disruptor, and the challenger to who you truly are. Finalizing, we got, again, remembering numbers were never used to count. So there's a disrespect that's happening with the numbers, and it's so rampant. That's why this having a lot of money thing, having a lot of numbers, having a lot of likes is basically saying, let's water down their ancestors. Let's water down their archetype. Now your ancestor can only get you a pair of Nikes. Now your ancestor can only get you that bag of chips. Now your ancestor, the more you have of your ancestors, it'll just make more money for you. That's really what's being said when you refer to numbers as a way of counting. So again, do the adjustments for that psychologically and metaphysically within your consciousness to come out balanced. And always remember, there's nothing to actually fear here. And I will tell, like, a lot of the people that are still out there, swimming in their own lanes, still not upholding this sacred honor of this sacred tradition, you better get ready to merge, because here in a moment, not too many people will be surviving in this. Like I said, there will be only corporations. So we would at least need to have a faction that rose in all of this, that was able to metaphysically hold the principles of just what is already displayed to us within something that has been living for billions of years proficiently. And we would need to have that as we're merging into the future. So we may not be on the team with Facebook. We may not be on the team with Google, or we may not even be on the team with the banking system. But by all means, if the kids are to survive, and if we're to continue to make this transition and enjoy the space that we're in, then we would just need to create our own. And always remember, if you build it, they will come. The reason why you see so much stupidity going on is because so far, these people have been the only ones that have been capable of communicating enough in their own motivations to actually develop something till completion that's not just about them. Notice how, well, it is just about them, but in front of everybody, it doesn't seem that way. So like the eBays, eBay doesn't post any items on eBay. You post items on eBay. Etsy doesn't post any items on Etsy. Facebook doesn't post items on Facebook beyond its advertisements. YouTube is not making any videos in-house. They use other people to do that. They've given other people the platform, and that's because they know one thing: build modular. Build something that other people can give input, because people will come there just to see them. We talked about it before, that communication, remember, used to pay, or your parents used to pay at least hundreds of dollars for long distance bills. Okay. Just to communicate with your uncle in Mexico or your aunt in Africa, it would cost hundreds of dollars, and you'd be like on the line feeling that. Now you can make those calls and you can make those connections for free. So it's that mostly that people are still interested in with social media. It's the communication, and people don't want to go to any other system where they're going to have to pay to communicate. They could do it for just free. So they've gotten used to communicating in this way. And then likewise, it's the gift and the curse, where you can connect with a person thousands of miles away from another country and really develop a sort of a bond with them. But you can also totally lose awareness of those even in your own house and those are closest to you, because you're voyeuring out too far. So this is why systems have to be created that actually bring people into the physical. And that's exactly what we have within what we're developing. So lastly, for those that may be prone to fear and wondering what's all going to happen here, remember, the weaker the body gets, the stronger the spirit becomes. By fact. You may want to keep those balanced to enjoy the best of both worlds. But if something happens, it only means that the body will actually lose strength completely, i.e. die. And the spirit will be able to go forward freely. So this means the worst case scenario for us is not even a worst case scenario. Stop running around like a chicken. Remember all those people that put all of those groceries and stuff in the room? You ever had a friend that, like, I remember 20 years ago, I was young, you know, some folks that was just totally bugged out about what was going to happen in the near future. And then they created these rooms with all of this rice and all these non-perishable foods. At least they weren't going to perish in the next 10 years. But that was 20 years ago. What happened to all that food? What were they preparing for? Did it ever really happen? No. Why? Bad timing, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, not seeing the whole thing before speaking about it, believing in it. Okay? I don't play like that. I got to go study everything. I got to know about everything. If I'm going to have this responsibility of coming in front of you and then saying this is what I feel is really happening, do you agree? Then that means that I need to actually have the integrity to go and research and to know about what subjects I'm speaking on. I expected someone in the conscious community, again, to highlight the Russian involvement, private eye, central intelligence involvement in this community that many of us are not aware of, including myself, until I had to connect all the dots. And then understand, again, why do they want it so bad? Why do they want New Age movement? The same reason why they want the ancient tradition. It puts a person in a stage where they're open and they feel connected and they actually are open with their heart empathically. And when you can get them into that stage and you can manipulate them at that stage, then you can do anything to them. So now many of these outlets are being used to continuously, and this manipulation is very simple. It doesn't amount to much complex things unless, you know, it's in those societies where they do the deep levels, initiations, and the layering of abuse that goes on there. But simply put, it's just to disarm the person. Namaste. It's all fine. Meanwhile, every time I went into the communities, especially those that have been run for a while, with the people who thought that it was going to be fine, man, they're just in shambles, especially the people who created the community. They're like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do about this. It's like we don't have enough power. I can't even pay for this land. I'm sad. My daughter, she left. So it's just all this drama. And it's like, okay, look, we need to just slow down for a minute, analyze this whole thing, fools rush in, and assess what is it we're even working to do here. And that's why when I distill this into sovereignty, first, spiritually, we achieved that 10 years ago. If you haven't done that yet, you're still a little slow. You need to get on the ball. So we did it 10 years ago, separating ourselves from all external deities. It's all good. If I go to hell because I didn't call on some external God that didn't make sense, that was looking like a man, never showed up, never asked back, wasn't even really my creed, oh well, I guess they hope they got a jacuzzi down there. So it just means I'm refusing to accept stupidity for anybody. So if you see billions of people doing it, it's not an excuse for you to do it. Actually, by that right, it may mean that you actually be the one that gets away. So it's that sovereignty spiritually. Then after a period of time, that will start manifesting on all subsequent realms. So now in the physicality, I'm on my way into sovereignty. There's many with me in this last 3-month stretch that we're going to push in this year, activating the platform, getting everybody in, activating them to their true potential of who they are and their personality, them dropping their personality, coming into being, becoming soul coaches, actually teaching the world through their own unique capacity, and then that being the way they sustain themselves, mobile wealth, until that whole thing shuts down. And then by then, we should already be on our own lands. We should already have our template set. We should already be developing our own powers. We should already really be using the metaphysical tools and techniques that we've been given, the flotation tanks, the diamonds, the tetrahedrons, all this stuff that we now know the formulas of accomplishing. Now we just need the space to actually be doing that. And then the intelligence to keep something going that keeps the current moving and keeps the fluids and everything circulating properly within what's going on. So everybody has the potential to oscillate through all roles. That's what nature is doing. That's what the cosmos is doing. And so that's what we're going to do. So wholeness and balance vibrations, everyone. I was going to take a moment to answer some questions, but I feel like since it's been 2 hours, there's been a lot delivered. Yeah, I guess we'll keep it at that. And just take a look at this, because to be honest, like sometimes this stuff, man, I'll be like, the only thing that can make all this right as far as balance, I'll say that, only thing that can make this all balance is we start coming together in this and start having fun. In a week, I'm about to launch the regeneration cycles. This is because I've definitely been in the grinder for at least 2 years personally, working 16-hour days at minimum, to make this vision happen.
And it's amazing for me to be sitting probably about 1 week out from heavy levels of work. And I have some restoration to do. Like I kind of let myself go in certain ways, even physically, just because you know how it is. You're doing a lot of stuff and you're like, man, am I going to the gym today? It's like, man, I can't go. It's the same thing. But if we're there together, same thing with the meditation, meditation every single morning, at least been able to get that in. Every moment's like a meditation for me, but just having that organized meditation coming in every day, knowing everybody's going to be there. The new platform is designed like that. We all go live a certain time in the morning. Even if you didn't catch it, you can come in and do it on your time zone. Switches every day, brings in the energy of the day, lets you know this knowledge so you don't have to go and over obsess on what all the correspondences are. All that stuff is just right there for you, just given to you on a platter. Nobody's trying to make this hard for you. Making the system sustainable, removing things that can become flaws, character flaws, and people can often destroy things. So removing stuff that would be prone to character flaws. Designing something that long after you're gone will still continuously uphold the integrity in which you designed it with, meaning that I'm going to leave at some point. But this will remain. And the way that it'll be designed is that whatever is made from it, whatever future form of currency is being used, and as it keeps churning it out, it'll be a complete balanced load of what determines where all those funds go and who they assist. And that's something that you learn in these new financial systems, that you can make this stuff trustless, where you don't have to leave a will and hope everybody in the will does what you tell them to do. There's a way to link everybody together in councils, especially when it comes to the financial and the current aspects of things, so that children keep getting food. Think about this. Think about your life and becoming and doing something like this, ultimately designing something that long after you're gone is still assisting and to maintain the balance towards the side of the kind, the people who are still willing to actually give their time, to give their energy, their essence and their heart to a greater vision. Like, I'm immortal, you're immortal, this is infinity, so I'm not running out of anything. If I don't get this right now, I'm going to be back in front of this in some way, shape, or form. So for me, it's like, I'd rather take 20 years and complete this journey than to take 40 years off and try to start it at another point. It's a serious thing. I'd rather do this now. They say you take 20 years to retire. Well, I got 10 years now. So if I got to go 10 more years at this same level, and not the same, won't be at the same level of work. Let me watch what I speak into existence, but at the same level of compassion. My work has been strenuous. 10 years of that consistent withdrawing, that's not what I'm signing up for. But this next 10 years of regeneration, one of the things that we're going to be getting into, especially in ambassador training in 1 week, is the microbiome. It's a big key to this whole thing. I'll give some advice now, just not to put a paywall in front of you, about looking at, there was a TED Talk, and it was about a software called Day 2. And then people have asked me about this, so I just wanted to chime in about this. I have some final notes here. It's called Day 2. It's at day2.com. I think it's only available in Israel, but the concept in itself is already written out, and the TED Talk is up. And what it's about is that there is no diet for everyone. Newsflash. And everybody knows, since we all got to eat, the most difficult thing right now is to figure out what you're supposed to be eating. Are you supposed to be eating meat or not? What kind of foods can you eat? What's available in your area? How is that affecting your body? I'm tired. My immune system's drained. Like, all the different things. You're talking about a body. So what is a method and knowledge about how to really determine that by your glucose levels, which actually then leads to you being able to determine what foods you're really supposed to be eating based on your flora and fauna or your microbiome. And this software that they are introducing actually is able to test your microbiome and then synchronize that with your DNA to know what your diet should be. Okay, so for all those who don't want to get involved in that, the short end of this is just a study in which we're going to be conducting, and which you can do yourself, about the microbiome inside your stomach and how that affects your dreams more than anything. Actually, the bacteria in your body, the thousands of bacteria and different little animals and entities that are all part of your cosmos, affect how you dream. They affect how much energy you have. They affect whether you're angry or you feel calm. They affect how smart you are in every single moment. All of that is controlled right through your own womb, your stomach. So in this regeneration process, we're going to be looking into that and putting things into practice, getting that in the regimen to actually balance out our microbiome. We're going to be looking into that daily, not the exercise that you got to pick up the weights and all that all the time, even though that's cool. But the reality is that you need something that you're doing and active that just becomes fun for you. And so I feel like when we encourage each other to do that by example, it gets others into doing it. We have this thing that we call proof of life. And that's just basically everyone checking in and sending a video if they can of what they've done that day, that was bringing their heart rate up and getting their blood coursing. So these are the things that really change who we are to being greater beings. And also these are the platforms and the connections that allow us to come together. And we're going to keep sharing this more. Like right now, the new platform, it has no limitations. So we can take you if you don't have anything. We can take you if you have everything. Either way, we got something for you and something that you can grow through. And that's what's been designed. And again, it's great to be 1 week from the completion. And I'm assuming personally, don't hold me to it, but that we should definitely be launching in the second week of September. We may pick an auspicious day and time. I don't want to do it on September 11th, or maybe we will to reverse the energy. I don't know. But basically, we're going to be launching somewhere in that time as far as us being complete and getting beta going on. So yeah, it's a big, for me, like, and it's just because it's taken this long, like 4 years solid on this build, seeing everything, experiencing you as you are, watching these comments, getting emails, linking with people, stopping quarrels, all the different things that I've experienced and learned through the conscious movement. I just took the best of all of that and what could actually be done and could be conceived. And I fired it into this last integration. And I feel like that based on what's happening in the world today, especially with the timing, that this will work because people will see this as an alternative in a time that there's actually few, if any, alternatives. And, like it's easy to throw up a landing page, like with some of these conscious sites, as I say, they're just landing pages. It's easy to take somebody's money for a course, but did that course really teach them who they were? And can you actually give them that knowledge actually without any money being required from them? And that somehow that knowledge would allow them to create money. That would sound great. Can we put our minds to that? That's what I did. I realized that a person's currency, their actual money, is tied up in how many constrictions they have within their own consciousness. How can they even make money? They're making money in a way that's not karma free. They're heaping on more debt on themselves. So they just feel like they're in debt. So I seen this from a metaphysical level, and I started putting in the metaphysical solution. So when you're with us, when you're generating current, that current is karma free. Everything that's being done within the network is actually uplifting everybody within it. So when you plant that seed, when you receive those seeds, those commissions, those ohms, whatever, and then you plant them again, they actually grow into being something because nobody's here predatory trying to make you do anything. And so we're actually making it super simple for all of us that want to get into this next stage to actually be able to do that. So that's what's up. That's what it is. Let me see what I got over here. Let me just check on a couple things before. Let me see my final notes. Yeah. Let me see over here. Wow, man, to be inside of this body is pretty wild for me. Like, I was like, man, you really turned up this life. It's like you got the most of this one. It's like they definitely are not going to say when I'm done with this one that I spared any, not getting deeply into it. So, okay, cool. So it looks like everything is on point, and it was great to transmit today to you, tribe. Also, again, we'll be in next. If you're not in ambassador training and you can afford to join, definitely get in there. There's lots of stuff going on. There's the proper handshake, as I said, with yourself and the deity within. And we're going to keep generating. We trust to have the new platform up soon so we can invite more people in and we can get these daily streams of meditations happening. And also to highlight some of my very powerful brothers and sisters that have been in the platform, already developing their unique assets, such as our brother Mark, our sister Diaz, lots of sisters and brothers, our brother Tim, Halo, all of us that are on this side, Eddie, there's just so many of us. I can go on and on, Manveer, Tanveer, Matha, Neva, I can just go on and on and on and on and on. And that's what we've done. We've built this family and we're coming closer and closer and closer together. Corinda and Caitlin and all the supporters also. Like, we have something special coming for the supporters that have put their time and the energy into either investigating Mindful app and actually contributing towards it. We got something super special coming, and all of that is rolling for me after this week. Let's bring this thing online. I know a lot of us feel like, we're ready for that next boost, as they talk about the catalyst, to getting you into the next stage of being. Some of us have already been through one of those series. Something serious happened in our lives, like a series and series. Something serious happened in our lives, and it snapped us into a stage of awareness. We even went through the Vipassana, or, we said the mantras, or whatever it was that actually caused this huge awakening with us. And then, you crest. And then now you're looking for that next, big thing that your being is supposed to be involved in, that actually equates to the next stage of energy you to become, and to motivate you in a certain sense to come back in this again. But this is about you now realizing the possibilities of working with the sail, meaning actually working with moving your current on this galactic cosmic ocean with the power of the winds and forces in your sails, rather than actually having this motor engaged that you got to keep feeding gas all the time. And so what I'm referring to is just like what I showed everybody today, these cosmic clocks, and this aspect of understanding the dream, if we want to call it that, in order not to offend any flat earthers. But this dream bubble that everybody is in, and these chakras moving across the sky, wherever they came from, and their effects, and what can actually be done during these times, and what resonates with this energy. This is what they would call magic, and, people I guess saying over obsessing, like sometimes over obsessing about this and not having the right knowledge, not knowing how numbers connect in with all this, and then how your energy is connecting with all of this. We're putting an end to that. So, Wholeness and Balance Vibrations Tribe, thank you so much. I'll be talking to everybody soon. There it is.